Hi, Harpreet. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. Thanks for doing this with me this morning.
Sure.
Harpreet, of course. I know you as a poet and as an author and as a spoken word artist, and of course, you're the creative force behind Love Notes because we've done two cabarets together, and of course, the third's been canceled because of COVID, but we'll do it again next season. And I know during this time, while we're all at home, you've had a bit of time to think, particularly about purpose. And I'm wondering if you can tell us a bit about that.
Sure. I think um, I've always wanted to explore how I can use my writing to essentially serve people and help people through words. And it's only since the last year where I've really kind of step into this role as an artist and a poet and a writer that I've asked myself these questions, like, why am I doing this? Why do I share poetry or affirmations and uplifting thoughts on my Instagram page? Why do I do those things? And over time, it's become really relevant that what really touches a nerve or what touches my heart even is when people reach out to me and say, I really resonated with what you shared, or I really needed this today, or when I've performed at Arts Commons, I've had people come up to me afterwards and they've said, I couldn't stop crying after listening to you speak because I'm going through something right now, or these are the things that have really made me realize that I need to continue doing what I'm doing. And then during COVID, I felt kind of helpless in the beginning. Like, I wasn't sure what can I do to help during this time. And I always come back to art. I always come back to writing. I always come back to poetry. And so during that time, I was thinking to myself, okay, people want to spend time with themselves. People want to explore writing, that like people that I've spoken to. So during that time, I, you know, created this guide called A Journey to Your Heart, because I wanted to offer something in my own way. So that kind of, that's always the guiding, um, what's the word? It's always guiding me, like this, this purpose of serving people in some way through writing. Yeah, so that, I mean, that's been my biggest thing over the past year, I think. And then COVID kind of like pushed me a bit more out of my comfort zone. I have never, for example, I've never done an Instagram live before, but I did my first Instagram live after a week of social distancing. But it just pushed me in a way that I never thought it would. Because obviously, like all of us, it's such a strange experience. I've never experienced anything like this in my life before. So I wanted to use the tools that I have to help in some way or contribute in some way. So yeah, I created this guide, and in this guide I share my own personal stories, which is again new to me. Like, I've shared stories about when I was 9 and I was involved in a car accident, and how I spent a lot of time alone, and how that particular challenging time in my life helped me overcome this experience, which was, it was really hard because I was 9 years old. I had a head injury, my hair was shaved off from up to here, and I didn't even think, it didn't even occur to me at the time that when I go back to school I'd be bullied for that. I couldn't walk for a couple of months, so I was around family, but I spent a lot of my time alone. So I share these stories in the guide, and I'm not sure why, but COVID sort of pushed me to be more vulnerable and share that part of me, in the hopes that someone else might resonate with it, and someone else might find some strength from that too, or it might remind them of a time where they've experienced something really challenging, and they can kind of use what they've learned in times like this, what's happening right now in the world.
Yeah, I mean, love notes for me at least, and I know you've talked about this before as well, is very much about spreading love to the world. It's about building empathy, and of course, all of that requires a certain level of vulnerability. And you've spoken about this just now, but I'm wondering if you can talk about vulnerability and how that may be new for you, which was a bit of a surprise to me when you mentioned it previously.
Yeah, so I think as an artist, as I work to be better at my craft, one thing that I realized about myself was that a lot of the work that I was sharing, I was still a bit reluctant to share parts of myself, and to people online and even at my show. So a lot of the work that I shared was kind of, it was uplifting, but in a way it was kind of vague. Um, what I've learned about myself is that in order for me to connect with other people, I need to be vulnerable, and I not need to not be afraid of sharing these stories, like of for example, my car accident and the bullying that I experienced, and my life living in England, in a Punjabi Sikh conservative family living in East London, um, and then speaking Punjabi at home and speaking English at school. Like, these are all stories that are mine, and I need to be open to sharing them. And it's not easy, but as I evolve and as I grow, I've learned that I need to embrace those stories and be vulnerable and not be afraid to share them. And it's quite empowering, actually, to be able to share them.
I imagine that, and I imagine with the guide that you've talked about, this series of guided writing sessions, that vulnerability plays a big part in that. And I know for many people, myself included, that can be intimidating. Can you talk a little about how to sort of break through that in, 30 seconds or less?
Well, I think it's to be able to look yourself in the mirror and be honest with yourself. I think that's the first step. It's being okay with spending time alone. We're really busy all the time, and we rarely spend time alone. And COVID and social distancing has forced us to. So that's why I created the guide, to give something for people to do in that time. So when all of this is over, they come back from, I guess, hibernation or something, whatever it's called, but come back new or refreshed and having let go of old things.
I think it's incredibly valuable. And I know for many folks, they've been taking this time to do a lot of self reflection, whether that's something they intended to do or it's a byproduct of the amount of time that we're spending with ourselves. And I certainly hope that this means that we all leave our hibernation, to take your word, with a bit more intention and a bit more focus too, which I think the world could definitely need. And like you said, pairing that with a level of vulnerability, and taking your lessons and direction from love notes to enter the world with empathy and compassion for one another, I think is a
Mm.
real gift. So thank you. And I know folks can find out more information about the writing journey that you've created on your website, because you have a new website, don't you?
I do. I
Yeah,
know
go
that was
on.
exciting. So the website is harpreetmdayal.com. And it's the same as my Instagram page. So
Mhm.
harpreet.m.dayal.
Fabulous. And I know people could definitely find you on Instagram. That's where you are most of the time, and where you share a lot
Mhm.
of your work as well. I know I find a lot of inspiration in it. So thank you for all that
Aw,
too. I know.
thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you so much.
No, I really appreciate you spending the time with me this morning. Thanks for popping on before you go off with your day. I appreciate it.
No, of course. Thank you so much.
Okay, talk soon, Harpreet.
Bye.
Bye.